Ben, walk me through that day from your eyes.
Well, it's a day that you don't forget. I hadn't gone to work yet, and that was one of the days, or certain days of the week, usually Friday, that we dressed soft. And I say soft, not my uniform, because I dressed every day in a uniform, or almost every day. But on Fridays, normally we dress down. Normally it was a sheriff's shirt, a marked shirt. And that's how people would have known I was probably going to dress that day. And my chief deputy called me early, well before I left here. He says, Ben, he said, get up, get dressed, and put on a uniform. We have a murder down here, and it's bad. He said, you need to get down here. So I went to Deltona, and after there was a lot of buzz already going on. We'd marshaled a lot of our forces, and they had been there for a while. And we got told that there was 6 young men and women killed, and a dog beaten to death with baseball bats. So we knew we were in for, one, not only doing our job, but having to do that tightrope of dealing with media. And when we dealt with media on that occasion, it's like one of those, it's a once in a lifetime almost sort of an event. Because we ended up with media from all over the country. It was a story all over the world. I mean, there was just TV people that showed up, newspaper, just everybody, radio. And it was just about like a small community of media. So we knew we had a very serious crime scene and started putting things together. And actually, the case went pretty quickly because we were able to determine that there was an issue between some people and Aaron Bellinger, who was in the house of one of the victims. And it led towards Troy Victorino. And of course, Troy had been evicted from Aaron's grandmother's house. He had been squatting there. And he'd been evicted, put in jail. And of course, Aaron cleaned the house out, and she had the stuff. The stuff was there. I mean, she had the stuff. And that was what it amounted to, is the crime was done because Troy Victorino felt disrespected. That's the best word to use, felt disrespected. And he decided he was going to get even. He had to get even for whatever reason, because of what he felt his status was or whatever. But he felt like he had to get even, and he brought this group of other young men into the fold with him, and they planned this vicious murder.
And you talk about, he felt disrespected, and that was something you and I talked about earlier. It was more of a, why wouldn't he just purchase new clothes or purchase a new Xbox? And it was, as you said, because he was so disrespected.
I does it in a nutshell. Felt disrespected. That was mine. I'm going to get it back, and I'm going to get even for what happened here, at all cost.
Yeah.
And it was at all cost. But how do you think in a mind like that? That's the criminal mind. Most of us don't think in the same manner as somebody like that. Like you said, I had to go get me another Xbox. I'll go to the house. I want my Xbox back. Give it back. But it just kept escalating in his mind to where he had to get even. So that's something that you almost have to deal with a psychologist to figure, maybe to find out. Because how do you deal with a crazy, mind? I say crazy mind. I'm not going to say crazy. I'm going to say a mean mind. Being crazy gives him a reason. There's no reason for this. He's not crazy. He's mean.
Yeah.
He's a mean individual that he acted that had lifelong consequences for him, Jerome Hunter, Robert Cannon, Michael Salas, and most importantly, the 6 victims and their family. That's the ones that you feel sorry for, is those people, those families. They've lost some. They haven't watched their children grow up. They haven't watched their children get married. They haven't seen their grandchildren. They don't have their families come over there for their birthdays. That's the ones that I feel sorry for. And they were innocent victims. As a matter of fact, some of them in the house that just happened to be there. But what's in a man's mind like Troy Victorino? How can you explain it except he's mean?
Right. And you talk a little bit about the victims' families, and you mentioned to me that you have children. If you were to put yourself in those shoes, what is one thing that you would say to those family members, or one thing you would want to hear?
That's a hard question. Because what can you say to bring them back? What can you say to really soothe them, to calm them? What can you say to make them not miss that family when they look on the dresser and see the picture and miss the things we just talked about? You really can't do anything. You know, time maybe makes it so they can live with it, but it's not going to make them forget it. Right. So there's something you can't, you know, I'm sorry. I wish we could have done something. I wish it hadn't happened. But what can you really say? And if you hadn't been in their shoes, what do you know? Yeah. You know, if you haven't lost a loved one, and no matter what, if you have, what can you really say to make it better? Except we'll do our best to bring these people to justice to make sure justice prevails. That's about the only thing you can do. Is we'll do everything in our power so that you see these individuals leave the streets and never get back on the streets again. That's about all you can really hopefully do that may bring them some closure.
Right. And as we're in the resentencing of them right now, or two of those men, excuse me, there's been talks of Victor having mental illness and having a troubled past and justification for him doing this. And you said he was just a mean person. What do you think about the fact that he was, at the time, 27, and the three men that he brought along with him were only 18? Do you feel that he was just kind of had that power over those three men? Do you feel any solace for the three younger gentlemen involved?
He was the definite leader, almost like a Charles Manson sort of a deal. He'd been in trouble before, so he knew better. They tried to rehabilitate him. It obviously didn't work. As for the other three involved, they were still grown, basically. Yes, they were young men. That doesn't matter. They knew right and wrong. I don't care who you are. You know it's not right to come in and have somebody tell you or talk you into going and beating to death 6 innocent people with a baseball bat. I have no sympathy for them. As a matter of fact, if I'd had my way, of course I was only the sheriff. I wasn't the judge, jury, and executioner. If I had my way, they'd have all gotten the death sentence. And these two right here, if the death sentence was ever deserved, it's deserved in this situation. They weren't given the death sentence, they earned the death sentence. And they earned that in capital letters. When there's no two ways about it. They knew what they were doing, they did it, they discussed it beforehand, so they had plenty of time to think about it, or to back out of it, or to do something else different, or to talk each other out of it. They didn't. They went in there and did exactly what they said they were going to do.
Yeah. In your time, you were the elected sheriff at the time, so you had gone through your whole 43 years with the Volusia County Sheriff Department.
Yes.
And you grew up here in Volusia County. Your family, before you, had roots here. When you face your community with something like this, what is the first thing you say to them? What is the first thing that you're thinking about?
On something like this, thank God you don't have many of this, not of this magnitude. We had others of a real heavy magnitude, I'll say, that were really terrible crimes that affected a lot of people, you know, or affected families. You have them. But about all you can really do is just go tell them the truth of what happened, and let them know what's going to be done and what you are trying to accomplish. A lot of crimes you can say, well, we can take and go and we'll take these kind of steps to prevent it. But a case like this, it's hard to prevent, something that you're not seeing. Something that somebody who, Troy Victorino should have still been in jail. Troy Victorino should have been arrested a week or two before by the probation officers for things he was doing involved with this. Troy Victorino had hurt a man one time so badly, I don't know how he got out of jail. So I mean, that's one thing is, you know, some people you can't do anything with. They're not fit to be in society. The best place to do is lock them up so they can't victimize other people. And some people don't understand that, but it's one of the reasons they went to such harsh penalties in the state of Florida for years. 85% sentencing, 3 strikes, you're out. And then all of a sudden they say, that's not good. Well, In a case like this, it might have saved 6 young men and women.
Yeah. What do you think, how do you think this has changed you as a person? Not as, a former sheriff, or a retired sheriff, excuse me. How has this case changed you as a person and your perception on life?
Well, hopefully, just not this case. But when you're in the job and you see people hurt, people killed, maybe a traffic accident, maybe a murder, maybe some other tragic accident, but it gives you the empathy. And what can we do to help the families? What can we do to help the law enforcement officers? They have to live through this. That's something people don't really think about. You're not only your law enforcement officer, but your telecommunications people. And it's something that, and this sort of thing is one of the reasons we started taking and mandating that they go and talk to a psychologist on a bad sort of an incident. Because they take it home. You take this home, you don't forget it. They can build on you. So what you want to do is make sure, do everything in your power to try to take and stop that, so you don't end up with the law enforcement officer with the suicide or the alcoholism that was induced by things laying on his head. But whatever you can do for that, but also that what can you do to help the victims of it? Why you have the victim advocates to go out there and help the people who are trained in it. So basically the boss, what he'll do is, yes, he can give the empathy to the families, but what other services can you provide for a longer term solution to help them maybe get through it? And a lot of this evolved from cases just like this one right here, where you didn't know what to do, you didn't have the resources to do it. So as time goes on, you start getting better and better and better to help take care of the future.
Would you say, looking back at, the year 2004 and looking at 2025, would you say there's been drastic improvements for the victims of these families?
For the victims?
The families of these victims.
I think so. It's still, would they really know it? I don't know that they know it because they're still carrying that burden. But what you can give them for maybe resources on the outside or advice on the outside or maybe things for them to do. I strongly suggest something like this. Families all need to go see a psychologist.
Yeah.
They need to. It doesn't matter. You're going through this and you feel like you're the only person in the world going through a terrible situation. But there's other people out there that have suffered tragedies also that sit down and they know what you're feeling. They know what you're going through. And they can sit there and they understand the pain inside of you, losing a child or something happening. So they understand that. May not know exactly how to cope with it, but they know how it feels. And you can at least have somebody to talk to that you sit here, well, like a divorce. How can you tell somebody about a divorce if you hadn't been through one?
Right.
So you've got to take that step forward. There's no doubt about it. And they have to take that step forward and realize that you can't change it. I have to take and somewhat put it behind me. You never leave it behind you, but so you can take and step outside of that tragedy so it doesn't destroy you too, because you don't want the tragedy to destroy them.
Yeah. If you could describe this case in one word, what would it be and why?
Probably easier to describe the 4 men in one word, and I would describe them as animalistic.
And why would you say that?
Because they acted like animals when they went in that house. They acted like a wild animal. So I describe them as animalistic. Now the case, horrific.
Yeah.
It was a horrific crime that shocked the nation, basically. You stop and look at it, everybody in the country was looking at it on TV that night and around the world. And how they say, this happens? How does this happen?
Yeah. It makes you think.
Well, it does. It absolutely does.
Anything else that you'd like to add about your time during this case, or, you know, as you're watching this happen, this resentencing happen, anything else you'd like to add that you've thought of?
Not really. Not really. I did go down last week one day because I wanted to see those two in custody again. I just wanted to look at them and know that they were in custody. And no matter what, they will never be on the streets again. It'll take an escape, and it's pretty hard to get off death row. But I do hope that they do receive the death penalty.